Thank you. And good morning. Good morning, you guys. Wait, I didn't hear you. Good morning. Okay, now you're really here. So, how did you guys get here this morning? By the cars? Anybody walk? You're walking back. Anybody take their bicycle? I did. Yeah, it was interesting. So you got here in a car, but how did you get here? Like, how were you when you were in the car? Tired? Okay, yeah. Very hot? Tired? Terrible? I hear terrible. Cold? Anybody like, I don't want to go to church today? Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. Ooh, so you came with a yummy breakfast, but kind of reluctant. Well, I'm asking you this question today because one of the things we're going to be talking about while you are in your classes is about how we travel through life, right? All of life is like a big, long journey from the time we're born until the time we die. But the question is, how do you journey? How do you travel? How do you want to be in your life? Do you want to be, silly sometimes, right? Bad sometimes, yep. Optimistic sometimes, yeah. Uh-huh. Wow. I don't know if you guys could hear that. She said she and her friend Liesl have a dream to fly out of the car and go into outer space and find a new planet and live on it together and be crazy for the rest of their lives. Yeah, I don't think she's very far off yet. So, well, yeah, you could go together. So that's actually, that question about how we are together and how we want to be in life, that's like one of the reasons people come to church together. That's a big question that we all come with about how do we want to be and how do we think the world should be and how do we make the world better and how do we love the world as it is while we're working to make it better. Kind of like how we try to learn to love each other as we are while we try to get better. So it's all part of the journey. And today we're going to sing a song about that, but first we're going to light our chalice. And Jackson, is that right? Jackson, you're going to come help me light the chalice? Come on up here. Is that tall enough for you? Can you stand up on there? Whoa, all right. And first, read these words. Can you read those words there?
Symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of warmth, symbol of freedom. Yeah. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love.
Awesome. All right, now I'm going to take hold on to this and put it in that flame until it lights up. There you go. And then take it over here. You can step down if you want to. Why don't you step down, sweetie? There you go. Hold on to that. It needs to go all the way up there. Good job. Now here's the fun part. Just pull that notch down. Whoop. Good job. All right. Go on down. Good job. Yeah, he's clapping. Everybody give Jackson a round of applause. Go on down. So now we're going to sing our opening song, which these guys already have it open to number 188. And you guys actually, I'm playing a trick on you. Because the part that you're going to sing with me and the part you guys in the balcony are going to sing with me is actually not written down in the hymnal. So, but it's very repetitive. Do you know what that means? Do your parents ever get repetitive? Yeah. Teachers. Over and over and over. You got it. You got it. So our part that we're going to sing together that's not written in there just goes back and forth again and again, says, though you've... that's the right, got to get the right key. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. So we're going to be singing that part over and over again while other people are singing what's written in there. You know what a vow is? What? Right. It's a promise that you make, but a little bit more serious. And wow. Some people do that on Fat Tuesday and then keep the vow until Easter. Yeah. Some people do it on Fat Tuesday and then break it on Ash Wednesday. That's what I always do. I don't know about you guys. So that's what we're going to sing, but the rest of the words that are really important and the rest of the people are going to sing sound like this. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. So together, those words all together mean even if you've broken your promises again and again, no matter how you're traveling, you're welcome in this group. And these words were written by a poet a long time ago. His name was Rumi. And he thought that this was a human invitation to each other and God's invitation to humans. So that's a whole bunch of words for you. But we're going to teach this to the congregation and you guys as a 3-part round. Do you want to talk more about how this is going to go, David?
Okay, so you guys, and if you don't want to follow the words part, you can just sing You've Broken Your Vows part. You can keep singing that, right?
You can be a vow breaker with me.
So this side will be group 1, and we'll sing the first 8 bars. Okay? Let's do it this way. Let's all of us sing it since we only went through it once. We'll all sing it once through, and then you guys will sing the first 8 bars. You guys come in at point 3. I'll cue you, and we'll just do the round a little bit while you guys keep doing.
And we just keep breaking our vows. Okay?
All right. So let's all start with your words, then I'll cue everybody to sing the part in the hymnal, and then I'll break us up into parts.
Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times,
everybody.
Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, 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 though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Good job, you guys. All right, I think David's going to play you guys out to your classes, so have a good class.
though we have broken our vows 1,000 times, here we are again. I invite you then to take a few moments to find in silence that which you find most holy, for prayer, for meditation, and for reflection. Most holy beloved, we come yet again, though truly for the first time, for this is the one day. We come yet again, though we wander and stray, though we grow lazy in staying or restless in leaving. We come yet again to this place, to this time, and to these people, to find and to be found, to seek and to be sought. Despite weather and wars, despite storms and struggles, slipping and sliding, dancing, crawling, with inner and international conflicts, we come. We come bearing heavy loads of grief and worry that we would set down for a while. And we come riding waves of joy and hope that we would share. Distracted we come. Encumbered by our lives that interrupt, we come. We come celebrating anniversaries of Roe versus Wade, of birthdays and milestones and sobrieties. And we come commemorating struggles, deaths, and backslidings, diagnoses and disappointments. However we come in these moments of silence. Let us know the stirrings of our hearts and minds, and let us be known. As we gather, so may we be gathered. May our prayers be heard, may our hearts be restored, and may our hope be renewed. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. Many of us familiar with Unitarian Universalism love the first principle, respecting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And we usually mean me. And most of us love the third principle, especially the first part, which is acceptance of each other and encouragement to spiritual growth. Most of the time, we're pointing the spiritual growth towards other people. They need to grow to be more like me so I can accept them. But really, the work of living religiously and spiritually is about life's journey. It's about being together in community and living up to our higher values. And that is why this month in particular, leading into February and the 125th anniversary of this congregation, looking at this church's mission statement, which states that the church exists to nurture and challenge the spiritual and intellectual journey of every person. Nurture and challenge the spiritual and intellectual journey of every person. That deserves some unpacking. What does the spiritual and intellectual journey mean? As a side note and an advertisement, we're encouraging folks to sign up for dinners and dialogues to share their own spiritual journeys in small groups. So if you'd like to attend or host a dinner around this theme in February, sign up at the welcome table. With this in mind, though, I have three different readings to share with you this morning. 3 different glimpses at people's visions of what spiritual journey might look like. The first of which comes to us from the Christian scriptures, the book of Ephesians, chapter 6. It was probably written in the latter third of the first century of the Common Era, written probably to a Gentile, non-Jewish audience by a disciple of the Apostle Paul, though often attributed to Paul himself. Some of you may be familiar with this as it talks about putting on the armor of God. Put on the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to withstand on that evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Stand, therefore, fasten the belt of truth about your waist, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. As shoes for your feet, put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. With all of these, take the shield of faith, with which you are able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So there's one image of what the spiritual life and journey is. A battle, right? Preparing ourselves for battle. Our second reading has a different take, and understandably, both because it's contemporary and because it's by Mary Oliver, who is a poet who's often been called a liturgist of Unitarian Universalism. Her nature poetry, much loved by many of our congregations and congregants. She gave the Ware Lecture at our National General Assembly in 2006 in St. Louis, Missouri. And this selection is actually part of a much longer poem whose entire title is Gravel. This is stanza 6, or subsection 6 of about 12. So here is Mary Oliver. It is the nature of stone to be satisfied. It is the nature of water to want to be somewhere else. Everywhere we look, the sweet guttural swill of the water tumbling, and everywhere we look, the stone basking in the sun or offering itself to the golden lichen. It is our nature not only to see that the world is beautiful, but to stand in the dark under the stars, or at noon in a rainfall of light, frenzied, wringing our hands, half mad, saying over and over, what does it mean? That the world is beautiful, what does it mean? The child asks this, and the determined, laboring adult asks this. Both the carpenter and the scholar ask this, and the fisherman and the teacher. Both the rich and the poor ask this, maybe the poor more than the rich. And the old and the very old, not yet having figured it out, ask this desperately. Standing beside the golden-coated field rock, or the tumbling water, or under the stars, what does it mean? What does it mean? Our third and final reading comes from another contemporary source, though a little bit further back than Mary Oliver. I first came upon these words as a farewell gift to me given when I was leaving my ministry in the Ogden congregation, and at that point in time I had no idea who Edward Abbey was. Among many things, he spent time as a seasonal park ranger in Arches National Monument near Moab. I'm told that his time there inspired these words that you're about to hear, which I'm also told were drawn from a book, though I can't find them in that book yet, about that time called Desert Solitaire, A Season in the Wilderness. Abbey describes himself as an entertainer, not a social commentator, because he says, I don't look at things hard enough. I'm not skilled at it. Instead, I like to write and throw words around, write good books and make people laugh and cry, provoke them, make them angry, make them think, and give them pleasure. So these words then from Edward Abbey, Benedicto. May your trails be crooked, winding, lonesome, dangerous, leading to the most amazing view. May your mountains rise into and above the clouds. May your rivers flow without end, meandering through pastoral valleys, tinkling with bells, past temples and castles and poet towers, into a dark primeval forest where tigers belch and monkeys howl. Through miasmal and mysterious swamps and down into a desert of red rock, blue mesas, domes and pinnacles, and grottos of endless stone. And then down again into a deep, vast, ancient, unknown chasm where bars of sunlight blaze on profiled cliffs, where deer walk across the white sand beaches, where storms come and go as lightning clangs upon the high crags, where something strange and more beautiful and more full of wonder than your deepest dreams awaits you. Beyond the next turning of the canyon walls. This concludes this morning's readings. Good morning again. For those of you who I've not yet met, I'm Reverend Matthew Cockrum, a consulting minister with this congregation, and along with Reverend Tom Goldsmith and the staff and leadership of this congregation and with you, it's my honor to serve the mission and the ministries of this place. There is much to do always, right? And you'll find a listing of all the things that are going on in your bulletin, of the many offerings that are about to happen, a fundraising dinner for our youth, adult religious education opportunities that have just been announced for the winter months. And to mark your calendar now for Celebration Sunday, which is the Sunday of the year that kicks off a celebration that leads into the pledge drive. This year, Celebration Sunday will be February 28th, but it will be at the Marriott Dance Theater. It will be one service. The service starts at 10:30, but there's a half an hour slideshow before then with all these great photos of the 125-year history of this place that Jenny Kilpack-Knutson has helped curate and put together. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, you want to celebrate and be with this crew, there's going to be some fun dancing and some great music. I hope you'll join us, but make sure you show up at 10 or 10:30 at the Marriott Dance Theater, because if you show up at 9 or 11 here, you'll be in a much smaller crowd and maybe cold, depending on the weather. If you have questions, of course, you can always call or email the church office. Also remind you that there are in your pew, there are gray cards that you can put in the offering plate if you need to communicate with the church office, if you want to know more about the congregation or get your name on the mailing list. You can stop by the welcome table and sign up for a name tag. You can poke us on Facebook. You can send us email. But however you connect, I hope that you connect in a way that deepens your life and your capacity to live life more fully in the world around you. For now, though, we will be receiving this morning's offering, and while the ushers come forward to receive that, I invite you to offer yourselves to each other. Introduce yourself to someone nearby with a handshake, a smile, a nod. Welcome to First Church. Om asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityoma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Shaviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid. Shaviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid. These two chants have become part of my daily practice. They're kind of my traveling music with which I start out many a day. One is from the Upanishads, part of the canon of holy literature of Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism. Roughly translated, Lord, lead me from the unreal to the real, from ignorance to knowledge, and from fear of death towards eternity. Peace, peace. And the second is drawn from the Hebrew scriptures in Psalm 16, verse 8, which roughly translates, I place the Holy One before me always. On good days, those things set my intention for how I will journey that day. On really good days, those things are mirrors of how I am in the world on that day. Most days fall somewhere between okay and good. I share these with you not to say that you need a mantra necessarily, but to begin a conversation about how we journey. Now, for those of you who came here because the first part of the sermon title was The Road to Hell, you'll either be relieved or disappointed to discover I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. Though we'll come around to it briefly towards the end of our time together. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on how we travel the road, whether it be to hell or to heaven, and how our choices about how we travel can change us. I've spent much of my life traveling. I grew up in a military family. My family was spread around the country. We went to visit them a lot in the summertime. That was what I learned about vacations, rather than flying off to other countries. For me, traveling was about visiting family. It was about going to places with people that I knew, to places where there were people that I knew. And as an adult, my journeying has been around my professional work and my postings, moving around every few years, kind of enjoying that rhythm of as soon as I land somewhere, starting to wonder about where I get to go next. So journeying and traveling have become really a part of my rhythm of life. So much so that when my husband Chad and I decided to get married and asked ourselves, what does that really mean anyway, to get married? What does it mean for us to get married? As we unpacked it, we discovered that what we call marriage, is a journey of commitment and creation, an ongoing journey where each day, each minute really, we're given a choice to recommit and to recreate. We had friends who attended our wedding and those who couldn't be there write blessings on strips of fabric, which we then affixed to walking sticks that stand beside our front door, visible reminders of those whose love always accompanies us as we travel together. I share those first two chants with you also to show you how I hope to travel in the world, always as a journey from not knowing to knowing, from a journey of what is not real to what is real, from a journey of fear to hope, and a journey in which I hope to see the holy in front of me always, expecting it, often in surprising forms. It matters how we travel. And I don't just mean our mode of transportation. I don't just mean SUV or on foot or public transit or private jet, although those too matter greatly. But what I mean here and what I'm getting at is that our intentions as we travel, our mindsets, and possibly even our physical way in the world matters. We say around here, as I mentioned, that we're on a spiritual and intellectual journey. But what does that journey mean in terms of how we view ourselves and how we view those around us, how we view the past, the present, the future? As a tradition that is rooted in liberal optimism and Enlightenment thinking, we should rightly be viewing our future hopefully, if with trepidation, and a recognition that progress takes work. The notion that we can progress, that we must progress, that we will progress, is built into this view that has given birth to Unitarian Universalism. Not a stagnant, one-time event, but an eternal movement and learning. That's why oftentimes you'll hear folks say, the living tradition that we share draws from many sources. It is a living tradition, continually unfolding within us and before us. And we travel this tradition in many different ways. So I'd like to explore a few of those with you today, beginning with the way of the Puritan. How do Puritans travel? I would imagine with some degree of self-assuredness, knowing, if nothing else, that the way behind must be worse than the way forward. Puritans' ways are the way of clearing away, shedding anything unnecessary, embracing and seeking that pure, essential, wholesome truth. Letting go of everything false, examining each thing with an eye towards judgment and assessment. Knowing themselves full well the experience of being shamed, of being cast out, of being found less than. Puritans view those around them with some degree of suspicion and wariness, perhaps disdain. Or often look at those around them as projects, people to be saved, converted. Have you ever lived around someone like that? I'll bet some of you have been someone like that. I know I have. Traveling as a Puritan means keeping one's eyes tuned towards what must be cast off, cut away, and always endeavoring to build or preserve the city on the hill, the perfection, either within or without. Traveling as a Puritan means defending to the point of persecuting others, castigating them as demons, witches. Puritans are not just centuries-gone forebears. They are among us and within us, even now. They are lurking. They are proclaiming absolute truths, whispering suspicions, skeptical, waiting to judge and yet fearing being judged. They are longing for righteousness and rightness. Puritans, I imagine, travel upright. Try this in your body. Stock stiff and upright, maybe with hands in a prayerful position, pious at their hearts, eyes alternately up and then darting around to see what the other people near them are doing. It matters how we travel. What did that feel like in your body, those of you who did that? I could feel the tightness within moments. Pioneers, on the other hand, are close cousins of the Puritans. They also hold a vision of a great and holy responsibility within them and all around them. The world is to be conquered as they see it, and claimed and tamed, bested, chopped down and hewn and shaped and used. The pioneer is driven by visions of greatness, even though they may be simple. This will change everything, remarks the pioneer. Pioneers see their surroundings, whether people or beings or objects, as resources to be discarded or commandeered or considered for their usefulness. Have you ever lived around a pioneer type? Have you ever been one? Less you're either with me or against me, pioneers are more lead, follow, or get the hell out of my way. Pioneers, I imagine, travel with a wide stance, taking up a lot of space because they think they're entitled to it. Maybe one hand on a hip. Try this as you're sitting there. And another one over their eyes, scanning the horizon. Maybe one hand's on their gun, I don't know. And a firm resolve on their face. It matters how we travel. Passengers, on the other hand, have learned to savor the world around them, to consume it, to invest in it, to consider it, to enjoy it. Expecting pleasure and perhaps pampering, passengers travel through life with a sense of entitlement, whether they know it or not. They may think that they've worked hard to be able to make this trip, and it may be true, but rarely do they see or appreciate how their work has been buoyed by privilege and unjust systems. they may get glimpses of these systems as they travel, and they may feel moments of guilt and shame and even desperation when faced with disparities of wealth and opportunity and wellness. Overwhelmed, passengers will quickly retreat to the safety of their air-conditioned cabins, soothing themselves with the trinkets that they've bought on their journeys, or perhaps with their addictions of choice to take the edge off, to calm, to smother their consciences. They may even give great sums of their accumulated or inherited wealth to those less fortunate who, but for the grace of God, there go I. Passengers travel, I imagine, in a very lounging attitude, leaning to one side. Think of it, maybe you're at a Seder dinner or something else. Why don't you try and lean this way, lean to one side. They're beginning with a bored gaze, but then their eyes are caught by something exciting. And then they're now troubled and then back to being bored, looking for the next piece of excitement. It matters how we travel. And then there are the pilgrims. And I don't mean the ones with the big brass buckles on their hats and shoes. These are pilgrims who are on their way to a holy land. So actually, our country's pilgrims may have been an example. But they're on their way to a holy land, not just a destination, but a pilgrimage. The entire journey becomes holy. Each step, each breath, a bit of precious progress towards some beautiful, imagined destination, toward a site and on a path that has been hallowed by those who have gone before in thought and word and deed. Pilgrims are often consumed by the reality of the world around them. They may move quite slowly and deliberately and conscientiously. You might have to honk at pilgrims to get them out of your way. You might be pushing them aside on the sidewalks. Pilgrims are oftentimes quite concentrated in taking stock of each moment and person and encounter. Donning the garments of mindfulness and centeredness, pilgrims may seem to float more than walk. If you ask them about what you see as their holier-than-thou demeanor, they will shrug and furrow their brows and then focus on you as another holy encounter on the path. Confused and newly concentrated, pilgrims cultivate an endless capacity for curiosity, to savor the world without consuming it, to preserve it as a precious treasure that it is and that we are. Pilgrims travel, I imagine, with great intention to their breathing. And I was told by someone in the first service, they're told to have one hand on the staff and the other hand above heart so the blood doesn't pool in your hand as you walk. I imagine pilgrims travel with a soft gaze, trying to love each being they encounter. It matters how we travel. Puritans, pioneers, passengers, pilgrims, and of course the list could go on for alliteration's sake alone. I'd add politicians and protesters if I was going to give you two more. They're pretty easy to caricature about how they travel and how they stand if you can put them in your minds. And maybe, again, you can find yourself in those roles in your own life. If we are all on spiritual and intellectual journeys that are apart on a trajectory towards a more just and progressive world, what are we moving from and toward? What role does intent play? What roles do social forces play? Is our journey about mastery or mystery? Both? Or something else altogether? The traditions of our movements, the movements of Unitarianism and Universalism, of the liberal and liberating Christianity from which they sprung forth, these traditions suggested that our journeys are about the progressive revelation of reality and truth and meaning. That humanity has within it the capacity to comprehend increasingly complex aspects of reality, both with head and with heart. And that through this process, salvation occurs, rather than through some divine radical inbreaking through a supernatural force that overrides the human will. Not by conversion, but by education, by lifelong growth. This is the tradition that we have inherited. Through this process, humanity progresses, journeys, and travels. Through education rather than conversion, through growth, the world and humanity are savored and saved. Of course, each of the characterizations that I shared with you are all caricatures, right? Puritans, pioneers, passengers, pilgrims, those were kind of two-dimensional truths. They're a lot more complex, as are each one of us. And if each of us is to be honest, we probably all have parts of some of those in our lives. I've begun to wonder if our lives are cycling through those personas, through those archetypes at different times, finding ourselves in one and then in a rut and needing to be moved onto new territory. And of course, each of them have both useful and productive as well as destructive tendencies, just as do the visions presented in our first three readings this morning. The first one from Ephesians of life as a battlefield, a reading that was given to me as a teenager when I was going through some difficult times. And I used to spend my mornings with that as a prayer, imagining armoring myself up. 10 to 12 to 14 years old, think about the life of a teenager and all of the things that they're facing. And I was thinking, oh, this will help. And it did. The boots of peace, the belt of truth, the shield of faith, the sword of spirit. I was thinking of myself less as a warrior and more as someone who needed to be protected, needed something to give me a sense of strength and stability in the world. And it's also been pointed out to me that sometimes that armor can become so encasing that we cannot connect to anyone else. So we can take it to extremes. Our second reading from Mary Oliver, that recognition of journey as movement and stillness and meaning, can only go so far for any one of us, even that of Edward Abbey, of life as a grand adventure, true and partial. It matters how we travel. Because in large part, no matter how much we like to think we are on our own, oh so very unique and individual, personal, spiritual, and intellectual journeys, we're all traveling together. We're all traveling on the same road. And that leads to both heaven and hell, friends. If we tried to consider how each and every circumstance is a part of our formation, our ongoing growth, and in turn, a part of the formation of the world around us, how might that change us? What if every moment, every circumstance, each political and personal discussion, perhaps especially those with whom we disagree or differ, what if each one carries within itself the opportunity to move from the unreal to the real, to move from ignorance to wisdom, to move from the transient to the eternal? Of course, we need not agree, and we must not condone injustice or hatred or oppression, but what would happen, I wonder, if we took a few moments, the best that we could in any given situation, and before we fell into our patterns and habits, before we assumed our routine responses and our stances of Puritan pioneer of judging, if we took a moment with those with whom we agree or disagree, or even those we rarely acknowledge, those we don't even attend to in our lives, what would happen? For we are all traveling together, though we might want to discount, disregard, disown, or dismiss those with whom we vehemently disagree. They too are part of our caravan, friends. somehow connected. And the more we demonize them, the more we risk failing to acknowledge the portion of truth of which they remind us. Perhaps a hard truth about ourselves, or just about humanity that we would rather judge than face. In this lifetime, this endeavor of being human is a journey, and it matters how we travel. A journey from smooth and simple to rough and complex, from secluded and safe to startling and convicting, from proud to humble. For we are called not just to be consumers of liberal media, thinkers of liberal thoughts, doers of liberal deeds, feelers of liberal feelings. We are called to see and to know ourselves as part of the journey of all of the earth, and to see and to know ourselves as connected to all the Puritans and pioneers and passengers, to the pilgrims and politicians and protesters and prophets that were and are and will be. The spiritual and intellectual journey is not about titillation, aggrandizement, or achievement. It's simply about equipping us to live in the world as it is, and then in so doing to work towards creating and revealing the just and progressive world that we dream of, the one that we have been told can be, the one that we have caught glimpses of in moments of connection and compassion and creativity. Here's to the journey, friends. And yeah, I was going to say, now that David's back. Hi, David. We were going to sing that a cappella without you. It would have been hard, but they're up to it. I invite you now to join in singing our closing hymn, number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey, 295.
Sing out praises for the journey, pilgrims we who carry on, searchers in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears in their time. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. Look inside your souls, the kindling of the hearth our pilgrims knew. Find the Spirit always restless, find it in each mind and heart. Touch and hold the ancient yearning, kindling forth a newfound truth. Stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Hearth behind us, wayside hostel, new wild roads. Guard we ere their sacred embers, carried in our minds and hearts.
Go now, friends, included and including, with compassion and celebration as your offering and your path. Engaged and responsible, let us return to the world that we need and the world that needs us. Go in peace and make peace. Amen.